I'm Jennifer Smith.
And I'm Melva Jones, and we are Women's Health in Black and White. And today we're going to be talking about fertility, ovulation, and conception. I'm going to kind of group all that together. Fertility, yeah, because it goes together. I don't know how we could break that apart. So fertility is basically like your ability to conceive and have children, your eggs and sperm, that type of thing. So with fertility, there are certain things that we can do to help improve fertility if we're having issues with it. One of the first things, and that is always an issue with everything, is going to be, of course, weight. Making sure you're at a healthy weight prior to trying to conceive or maintaining that weight. I did look up at some studies, and they reported that being overweight can affect both male and female fertility. So a lot of times we just think female, but males, you guys, kind of have to help us out with that too. So trying to get to a healthy weight. The study said like a weight loss of 5 to 10% can improve fertility, and that's not super much. Just kind of change your diet habits, eating sugary drinks, kind of reduce those, that type of thing. Another issue with fertility is that, we often talk about how females' fertility decreases with age, but you can be a young person and still have fertility issues. I think that's kind of like a blanket that we're thinking, oh, she's in her 20s, she should be able to have a baby normally. And then you have these women who are trying for like a year or longer, and they're just like, I don't know what's going on, and they don't seek the help because they just assume that they should be able to have a baby. So if you are having issues getting pregnant, you should definitely try. So the general rule is like if you're under 35 and you've been trying for at least a year with no success, then it's probably time to go see your healthcare provider. Over 35 is kind of that age where
that golden age,
everything just goes to poop. So if you're over 35 and you've been trying for at least 6 months or so, then you want to try to talk to a healthcare provider and kind of figure out what could be going on, because there could be some type of issues. So also with that fertility and age, don't assume though just because you're older that gives you the safety net that you will not get pregnant.
You'll be 46 and pregnant with your first child.
A lot of women kind of get into that false level of security. They're like, oh, I'm 38, 9, I'm 41, 42. I'm done having babies and I'm not going to get pregnant. Just because you're mentally done in your head does not mean your body is done. Unless you have fully completed menopause, there is still the possibility that you could get pregnant. So those are two things I wanted to make sure that I talked about. But if you are in that little space of where you've been trying, for at least a year or 6 months, if you're over 35 and you have not had success, if you do go to your healthcare provider, they can do different exams and tests, check your hormones, to see what your levels are, because that does have a big impact on fertility. They could do different tests to check your reproductive organs, to make sure that you are ovulating, that both ovaries are functioning properly, that your fallopian tubes are open. That your uterus is free of fibroids. Sometimes that could be an issue. Endometriosis. If you've had pelvic inflammatory disease, a lot of different things could be affecting your fertility. So you do need to get checked out for those specific type things, especially say, hey, we've been trying for a year, no success, to try to figure out what's going on with your fertility. They'll ask you things like, how often do you have sex, have you had your medical history, any surgical history, history of STDs, things like that. All that is important into trying to figure out what's going on. Another thing is going to be smoking and drinking and drug use. That, we always encourage, of course, during pregnancy, to reduce those things. We want to say stop, but we know those are things that are kind of just hard to go cold turkey. But it can also affect your fertility as well. So those are some things that you could talk with your healthcare provider about. Some ways that I found just researching was natural ways to improve fertility that you could do, before you seek help or after you seek help to kind of help things, is to kind of eat more healthy, antioxidant-rich foods. So those would kind of reduce what we call like free radicals in your body, and that could improve your fertility. So fruits, vegetables, of course, drinking more water, that type of thing will help. I did see this article that I wasn't aware of. I'm not sure if you have heard about eating a bigger breakfast in the morning. Can kind of help women, especially with PCOS, as a way to kind of more balance their hormones.
Polycystic ovarian syndrome.
I know, I forgot that y'all aren't medical. So it found that article was based on women with that disorder, and it was saying, that having a bigger breakfast and a lighter dinner kind of helped them conceive a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But I want to make sure that you know that eating a bigger breakfast and eating a big lunch and dinner, like that's gonna kind of be a negative way. So it just said a bigger breakfast and taper off through the day. So your lunch and your dinner should be lighter because we don't want you to gain weight. Speaking of weight, you want to keep your weight at a healthy range. You want to eat healthy. If you are overweight, you want to try to lose a little bit of weight. If you're at a healthy weight, you want to maintain it. So, reducing your carbs, eating more fruits and vegetables, like I said, cutting out sugary drinks, reducing your caffeine, those type of things can help you maintain that healthy weight. And that goes for guys too, because we need both healthy eggs and sperm, to make this process work.
And likewise, if you're very underweight,
yes,
you need to gain weight. A lot of underweight women don't even ovulate.
Yeah.
So you need to reach and maintain a healthy weight, whether you're starting on my end
or the other end that we don't know anything about.
That I've never been on the other end.
I don't know anything about that end. But if you are underweight, you do need to try to get to more of a healthy weight. And multivitamins, just, getting your body in a healthy state. You can take multivitamins. Some women, I've heard, take prenatal vitamins just, before they're pregnant, just as a way to kind of prepare their body. And that's totally not a bad idea.
I've been taking them for years.
Yeah, pregnancy depletes your body of all your good stores and stuff. So kind of giving it an extra boost definitely would not help that. What else do I want to tell you guys? So with fertility, you have to ovulate, of course. So ovulation is just going to be when, you release an egg from your ovaries. And so there are hormonal changes that happens. What I mentioned, if you're having problems, your provider will check your hormone levels. So in specific, you're looking at like follicle stimulating hormones. So that will kind of help your egg mature to be a healthy little egg for your ovary to release. Luteinizing hormone, that's something that kind of spikes right before you ovulate. That's important to know if you're having that. Your estrogen levels, progestin levels. So those are all things that need to be checked to make sure that you're adequately having those hormones to help you get pregnant and to maintain that pregnancy. Ovulation usually occurs, it can vary between days 12 and 16. Jennifer, we did a video about the menstrual cycle. You can go back and look at that. That's a cute little plug for that video. And so you will have to know what your menstrual cycle is. Everybody's is a little bit different. The typical normal one that you will hear is the 28-day cycle, but you might not fall into that range. So what you would need to do is track your period for at least 2 to 3 months, I would say. Track the day you start your bleeding, track how long it lasts, and count how many days it is until you have your next one. That's how you figure out what your specific cycle is. So it could be less than 28 days, it could be more. So you need to figure out what that is, because that helps you know when you're actually ovulating. That's very important. Ways to determine if you are ovulating. Let's say if you're on a 28-day schedule, you would usually ovulate between 12 to 16 days before your next period starts, somewhere in that window. And we give a window because you can ovulate and have sex. It's a window period. It's not a specific thing. I think a lot of women kind of feel like you should exactly know the date I got pregnant.
I don't.
And we don't.
I
mean, there's no...
I wasn't there.
Yeah, there's no medical way for us to know. And I hate to bring this up, but I am. You know, a lot of times women will try to get us to figure out what partner got them pregnant. We have no idea. If you had sex on a Monday and had sex on a Tuesday,
could have been either one.
We don't know. Like, so please be gracious with your healthcare providers, because we literally don't know. But ways to check it out is you can keep up with your body temperature. And when you ovulate, typically your body temperature will raise like a half a degree to a degree. That's one way to know.
It has to be done before you go to bed.
Yeah, it has to be in the morning.
Walk around for 5 minutes. Then take it.
Keep your thermometer beside you on the bed and check that. Monitoring your levels of luteinizing hormone. I know you're probably like, how am I supposed to do that? But there are over-the-counter ovulation kits that you can buy at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, and they literally, say ovulation kit. So those are things that you can buy, and it gives you instructions on how to use them and track things. Another thing that you could do is to look at your discharge or cervical mucus. That does change throughout your monthly period. So when you are ovulating, it typically is like a clearer, more stretchy type of discharge. Stringy. And I know for some of you, you're probably like, I'm not fixing to play with my discharge. But, I mean, if you're really serious about knowing your ovulation and getting pregnant, I mean, you'll do it. So it's supposed to kind of resemble the consistency of egg whites.
Yep.
That's what they say. So the little stretchiness that you would have if you're trying to separate egg whites, that's kind of the consistency that you're looking for. And that just helps to make the sperm swim more easily, to help get you pregnant. Other signs are going to be breast tenderness and bloating. It's kind of a sign. And then generally, you want to try to have, once you figure out your ovulation pattern or your menstrual cycle pattern, when you're ovulating, want to try to have sex 1 to 2 days before you ovulate and during the ovulation period. Just be careful that, you're not going at it 4 or 5 times a day, because more sex can reduce the sperm count in the male. But having sex during that period greatly increases your chances, because eggs, they don't live as long as sperm. Eggs is like 1 to 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
Sperm can be, most sources say 3, some say 3 to 5. So little swimmers can be in there for a while. So having sex during that ovulation period will improve your chances. So once your egg is released, it will travel to your fallopian tube. Generally, that's where the sperm will meet it and fertilize it. And then in most cases, in the normal cases, the egg will continue to go down your fallopian tube and implant into your uterus, which is like the conception phase of it, the egg and sperm meeting. But with the conception, like we said, that could be during that whole window period of ovulation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of why you get a due date you get an actual due date, but we always tell you could deliver, up to 2 weeks before, 2 weeks after.
That's right.
And that's just a science thing. With conception, normally the egg and sperm fertilize, goes and plants into the uterus. And 9 months later, you have a healthy baby. But sometimes there can be issues with that process. Sometimes the egg can get caught in the fallopian tube for whatever reason, or implant, and that is a health issue, ectopic pregnancy. So if you're feeling like you're pregnant, you've missed a period, and about 6 to 8 weeks after your missed period, you're having a lot of severe pain on your left or right side, that is definitely something you want to go get checked out about, because it could be a tubal pregnancy or ectopic pregnancy. And we don't want that tube to rupture. So what will happen is the baby will continue to grow, and it'll get too big for that tube, and that could lead to like hemorrhage. So if you miss your period, you're kind of thinking that you're pregnant, because you will still have the pregnancy signs, and you start having that severe pain on the right or left side, definitely go get that checked out immediately.
That's a medical emergency.
Mm-hmm. It's an emergency. Other issues that you could have, you could have a perfect conception, sperm and egg is beautiful, it implants, and then you have a miscarriage. So sometimes that is things that will happen as far as, conception, and that can happen at any point. I mean, you can have a miscarriage at that point. So same thing, if you're having
8 pregnancies.
Right. It's very common, and it's something that women don't talk about so much. Like, you would be surprised how many women have had miscarriages, and you would never know. A lot of times you won't know unless they just mention it or it comes up, or I'm so happy, this pregnancy lasted because I had 4 or 5 miscarriages. Like, whoa, I didn't know that. That is very important to let your healthcare provider know. It's nothing to be ashamed of, but that's important in, determining ovulation and fertility and that type of thing. We do need to be aware of that.
And even maintaining a healthy pregnancy. Right. Recently, we had a patient come in and we thought it was her first pregnancy, and she was RH sensitized.
Oh, wow.
That means that she is RH negative and her partner is RH positive. We'll talk about all this at a later video, I'm sure. But it can be a problem for the pregnancy.
Right.
And when we talked to her further, we found out that yes, she had a miscarriage, and she didn't report it to us because she didn't think of that as a real pregnancy. It's very, very important that you tell us about miscarriages and abortions and anything else that's happening.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. It's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just something that we need to know to kind of help know your plan of care. And the other thing I was going to mention when you brought that up is sometimes you will have the symptoms of pregnancy, and when your healthcare provider does that first exam, they'll just say, well, it's just a gestational sac. And so that basically means that, you did have something that implanted, but there was no baby forming in there. And so even if that was the situation, you do still need to mention that to your healthcare provider too, because that gives us like a clue of, something could be going on with your body. And so basically that's pretty much like the little spill on fertility and ovulation and conception. You can find different apps for fertility tracking, ovulation tracking on your phone. Go to your Play Store, you type it in, and a lot of apps will come up. I did it last night, and it was over 20 apps popped up. A lot of them are tied to period trackers. And so it's just an app. You can choose whichever one you like. You put in your
information. Plugging old videos. I did one about period trackers.
And we did a video about that. So you can choose the one that you like. There are several different ones. It will let you input your information, how long your period lasts, the symptoms that you have. And so it will actually give you when your next period is. It'll kind of tell you what date you should be expecting it. It will give you, most of them will give you a period of this is when you're ovulating. And so that's kind of an easy way to keep up with it. Like I mentioned earlier, there are ovulation kits that you can purchase in the store to kind of keep up with your ovulation and checking your temperature every morning, like Jennifer said, before you get out of bed, to see if you see an increase in temperature. Typically, if you see that 1 degree or half degree increase, you're ovulating during that time. And so there's plenty of products kind of to help you determine when you're ovulating, when you can get pregnant. And just remember, if you've been at it for over a year, under 35, and at least 6 months over 35, then you need to go to your healthcare provider.
We have a video coming up sometime in the future where we're going to have a guest star, a nurse practitioner who works with me who has had a lot of experience both personally and professionally with infertility treatment. And she's going to go through all of that. What your first step is, what the second, third, fourth, fifth steps are, and help guide you through that process too. So we'll be doing that later on.
All right. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Listen at our podcast Afterglow. Leave us comments, any questions you might have about fertility, ovulation, anything that you've personally experienced or things that you felt helped you in that journey or things that did not help you. Please let us know. We will read the comments and maybe address it in another video.
See you later.
Bye.